Today we have a mechanical keyboard build that's a bit different to the other ones I've done so far. However, we are back with a familiar 60% form factor build. Thanks to Banggood.com for providing most of these parts for the build, and I'll put the links in the description. Alright, so pretty much all the parts are from Banggood besides the key switches, because all they really have are Gatoron blacks, which I've already used. So yeah, this is going to be another 60% build, so I don't really want to spend too much time on the building process, but do more of a review mainly on the Kale Box Brown key switches, the wooden case and the keycaps. As always, we start with a PCB, and this is the good old Satan GH60 that you can find everywhere, and this supports a couple of different layouts. Since I used the ANSI layout, that's what I'm gonna build, but I know there's a heap of Europeans out there that use the ISO layout, so yes, this is ISO compatible. We already have the diodes and resistors soldered in, so all we need to put in are the key switches and LEDs if you want some lighting. First step as always is to put in the stabilizers, and these are the cheap Chinese stabs that are always pretty bad and rattly. Always try to get genuine stabilizers, or at least have some lube at hand such as super lube or dielectric grease. We have a black aluminium mounting plate, and as we can see, it allows for a few different positions of various keys to accommodate some different layouts. As usual, building a keyboard requires some soldering unless you have a hot swappable PCB or hole tights or something, so you'll need a soldering iron, and I'll link a great video specifically on soldering mechanical keyboards by my friend Juju. I actually did this build like a few months ago, so I got these Kale Box Brown key switches when they were relatively new and unknown, but now there's a heap of box switch variants and are quite a refreshing wave of key switches in the market, especially with their clickies. And these are MX style key switches with the classic cross stems, so all Cherry MX keycaps will fit. All box switches have a said box looking protrusion around the cross stem and are closed off at the top. So there's no holes for through-hole LEDs, so you will either need SMD LEDs, in which this PCB and many others don't support, or you put in the LEDs first, as I have done in the past. And this is part of making them IP56 waterproof and dustproof key switches. Opening up the key switch, and again it's different. First of all, the spring is slimmer. The bump on the slider that creates that tactile bump pushes onto this little bit here, and here's the other box which gives it its IP56 rating, and inside we have the contacts. Now to the case. This comes in two versions on Banggood's website, and this is the yellow rosewood color, and the other one is walnut, which is a bit darker, while the one I have here is quite a bit more bright and warm. Being wood, every case will look slightly different with different grain structure and such, as well as tones of color, but this one looks quite nice to me. It's quite a simple rectangular design with 8mm side bezels and 10mm top and bottom bezels. This is CNC routed, and the finish for the most part is very good and very smooth, although on mine one corner has been pushed in, so it looks like it was dropped or something, and on the left hand inside edge, which is the end grain, it's pretty rough, which isn't great, but it can't be seen in the end. Being a nice solid piece of wood, there's no flex, and it comes in at 340 grams, which goes in between plastic and aluminium cases. The USB cutout is quite large, and I believe it should be able to accommodate for a USB-C port, although I don't have a PCB on me to test, and we also have a small cutout at the bottom that lines up with our reset button. And there's also some nice brass standoffs which are solidly supported by the surrounding wood. And to finish it off, the keycaps. These actually come pretty nicely packaged in a box, labelled as OG keys I think. And these are an imitation of the famous carbon key set, although there's quite a few differences. First of all, the quality. This isn't a GMK set or anything, so we have PBT plastic, which is good, however the legends are lasered rather than dye sublimated. And consequently we have a quite light grey for the alphas, and we do not get the orange text on the modifiers and have white instead. They're about 1.5mm thick, so that's actually decently thick. Since this is a 119 keycap set, you would think that it may perhaps allow for some compatibility for different layouts, such as a 1.75U right shift or some different R1 keys, but unfortunately that's not the case, as basically all the extras are novelty keys, although they're quite funny ones as well. We have like the main keyboard forums, some games, and even the Pimp My Keyboard logo. But altogether I still think the keyset looks pretty good, and the keycap colors are still approximately the same, and I feel that it matches up nicely with the yellow rosewood case, creating a very warm feeling aesthetic. The shape of the keyboard is very simple, but the colors of the case and keycaps really do make it stand out. The wooden case has a slight inclination to it, but other than that, it's just a rounded rectangular prism, and the case has held up fine for the few months I've had it, although I haven't really moved it around so much. But it is a hardwood, and pressing my fingernail into it does nothing, so I'm quite pleased with the quality and the build of the case. Again, this is a 60% keyboard, so we're missing a lot of primary keys, but they are on the secondary layer, which is accessed via the function key, and you can flash a different layout on it if you want. But 60% keyboards aren't for everyone, such as myself, and it does take some time getting used to. Coincidentally, the Kalebox brown key switches do match the theme of the keyboard, and these are a weird key switch. As said, these are tactile, meaning that they have a bump but no click, and have an operating force of 50 grams. However, the bump is right near the top, so right off the bat, it feels different to say Cherry MX Browns and other tactiles. It has a more pronounced and sharper bump compared to MX Browns, especially when actually typing. You feel that tactile feedback a touch more. Although there are a heap of new Kalebox variations, and I think these haven't been the most popular, and I can see why. Again, wood is kind of in between plastic or acrylic and aluminium in how it sounds and feels, although the plate is still aluminium. But I feel that it's slightly softer and fuller than some 60% aluminium cases, but not as much as acrylic, and I guess it's a nice piece to have just for the variety in material in a collection. Overall, it was a pretty fun build, nothing really out there, but it was great to work with the surprisingly nice wooden case. The keycaps aren't the best, but they still look the part. And the key switches are an interesting one to keep around purely because they're a bit different to the other tactiles I have, but I'm not the biggest fan. Thanks again to Banggood.com for providing most of these parts for this build and for their continued support. I'll put the links in the description if you want to check them out.